Seraphine Edevane stood beneath the 7 dragon glass vent veins of Emberchant, while thousands waited to learn whether the smoke in her lungs had finally cost her the office she had kept safe for 6 years. Rite-Marshal Hestia Quill raised one hand toward the upper ignition gallery. Senior Vent Warden Edevane performed the crown. Pressure call. Seraphine looked at the sealed vent tablet against her palm. Its black glass held the ascension route. First intake, lower release, counterdraft interval, then the final rise through the royal vent. Because her damaged lungs no longer supported ignition command, Seraphine had petitioned to transfer her authority into the lawful office of Ember Root Witness, preserving her technical rank, root review authority, and power to halt an unsafe rite without requiring the crown pressure call. "Assign the high call to Warden Caldris," Seraphine said. "I will serve as Ember Root Witness." Hestia's expression remained composed. "The court is not examining your ability to advise another warden. It is examining whether I can keep the root lawful. It is examining whether the crown can place visible authority in a voice that fractures under command." The Royal Emberway carried ceremonial dragonfire beneath the amphitheater through channels controlled by hand signals, coded counts, and sealed maps. An Ember Root Witness preserved the lawful sequence, compared live pressure against the sealed route, and could stop ignition if heat deviated from it. Otherwise, automatic shutters would drop across the public galleries as a last defense. The witness could halt ignition, but could not alter a sealed ceremonial map without joint approval from the Rite-Marshal and Crown. She had helped write the provision. "You have my route assessment," she said. "Your counterdraft branch was approved for emergency evacuation, not for the ascension route," Hestia replied. "Its capacity has never been recertified for ceremonial pressure. The stone does not stop needing an outlet because your annual map refused to name it." The Dragon King sat above the engine floor beneath a dark iron canopy. His mantle hid the scar on his left shoulder. 3 years earlier, smoke had sealed the western corridor of his private chamber. She had counted pressure through a burning doorway and shouted each turn until he found the only open route. Her final commands had torn something inside her lungs. No royal inquiry had asked what they cost. "Hestia Fastorias. The right may survive an accommodated voice. The crown may not survive 7,000 people watching its command fracture." Seraphine kept her gaze on the king. "That is presentation, not vent law." Orias descended 1 step. "Can you read the live pressure sequence?" "Yes." "Can you identify backdraft before it reaches the public tiers?" "Yes." "Can you perform the crown pressure call?" "No." The answer carried across Emberchant without apology. "The high call can be reassigned. The route cannot be guessed." Hestia turned toward the upper gallery. "A fractured command can create hesitation. Hesitation at an ignition gate can kill. So can removing the person authorized to halt a disputed route." Orias looked at Seraphine's tablet. He could assign the call elsewhere and retain her as route witness. He could order an independent lung assessment, compare her emergency tablet, the physical vent structure, and Hestia's certified map, delay the rite, or reject the suspension. Seraphine had written 3 of those alternatives into the emergency code after saving his life. "Ask whether I can keep the rite safe," she said. His jaw tightened. "I have asked what the public office requires." "No. You asked what the public will notice." Hestia opened a narrow iron case and removed a black cinder cord. Temporary removal from ignition duty required only a command notation. Ritual suspension required the Dragon King to bind that cord around the warden's sealed tablet. The act barred Seraphine from the Emberchant engine floor and stripped her emergency authority pending review. Hestia offered him the cord. Orias did not take it at once. Seraphine's breath shortened, though she kept her shoulders level. "You remember the route?" "I remember being led out." "You remember enough to use the life it bought. Do not turn a royal judgment into a private debt. It became public when you let her call the wound professional failure." The court stayed silent. Orias took the cinder cord. Seraphine removed her brass command clasp before Hestia could reach for it. "You may remove my tablet. You will not erase the 6 years I kept your ceremonial fire from becoming another locked room." Orias bound the cord around the black glass. "Seraphine Edevane is removed from active Vent Warden command and barred from the Emberchant engine floor pending formal review." He had chosen visible certainty over the investigation she had earned. Seraphine placed the tablet on the suspension stand and turned toward the ritual gate. Behind her, Hestia assigned the crown pressure call to Warden Couldris. His voice carried cleanly across every gallery. "First intake. Open." The lower gates released in sequence. "Second channel. Hold." Dragonfire entered the royal emberway. White heat moved beneath the floor, brightening the glass channels one by one. Couldris delivered the next command without strain. Hestia followed the certified ceremonial map. The third gate opened. Pressure reached the ascension junction and found the emergency outlet closed. The branch still existed beneath the floor, but its gate had not been included in the active route. Pressure reversed. Every dragon glass vein darkened at once. The automatic shutters dropped across the public galleries. The engine floor extinguished the right before the backdraft reached the upper tiers. No command had failed. The map had. Residual heat darkened the dragon glass from the blocked junction toward the closed emergency outlet. The ember vein trace recorded heat stress, attempted direction, and the point where the active route provided no release. Seraphine stopped at the ritual gate. That same branch was etched along the exposed edge of her cinder-bound vent tablet. The route missing from Hestia's certified map was still recorded on Seraphine's sealed tablet. The shutdown transformed Seraphine Edevane's fitness hearing into an inquiry about the map used to judge her. Rite-Marshal Hestia Quill ordered the engine floor cleared. "No one crosses the pressure channels until the glass cools," she said. "The trace must remain undisturbed." Orias descended from the royal platform. "The ascension rite will not resume." "The shutters performed as designed," Hestia replied. "We can reset after inspection. A route that drives pressure into a closed outlet is not ready for another ignition." The certified map, Seraphine's cinder-bound tablet, the gate register, and the annual approvals were placed beneath a joint evidence seal. The independent senior vent examiner held one key. The crown archivist held the other. Seraphine remained beyond the ritual gate. "Am I required to stay?" "No," Orias said. "Then do not call me back as an accused warden when you need a technical witness." Hestia's expression tightened. "Your suspension concerns command capacity. The defective map does not restore your lungs. No, it proves you tested my breath while refusing to test the route." The senior vent examiner entered Seraphine as the submitting route engineer and a voluntary technical witness. She remained only after her right to counsel and access to certified copies were entered into the inquiry. The cooling ember vein trace showed heat stress from the ascension junction toward the closed outlet, then reversal toward the galleries. It did not show whether the branch had been approved or why the map omitted it. Hestia indicated the darkened glass. "A physical outlet may exist and still remain unlawful for ceremonial pressure. A working gate is not permanent route certification." "Then show the certification chain," Orias said. Permanent inclusion required 3 stages. The senior vent examiner certified the branch, gate, pressure load, and adjacent channels. The Crown then authorized permanent route status, personally or through delegated warrant. The Rite-Marshal's office had to incorporate it into the next ceremonial map or file a recorded technical objection before certification closed. Seraphine could not add the branch herself, open its gate, or treat her tablet as controlling authority. The annual map packet was opened beneath both key holders. The certified route contained 6 active branches. The index etched along Seraphine's tablet showed 7. "Who last inspected the emergency outlet?" Orias asked. "A maintenance crew tested the hinge 4 months ago," Hestia said. "Mechanical function is not pressure approval." "Was the gate opened?" "For a cold movement test only." Seraphine looked at the register. The outlet cannot be cold. Tested from the ascension junction, the inner hinge locks under residual heat. Your knowledge predates the replacement assembly. My emergency tablet contains the replacement measurements. It remains sealed, because the king bound it. Orias's hand moved toward the cinder cord, then stopped. Opening a suspended tablet without an evidence order would destroy custody and permit allegations of alteration. The evidence needed to test the map remained locked by the cord he had tied. Seraphine was being asked to wait while the Crown verified knowledge it had punished her for possessing. "Can the tablet be opened lawfully tonight?" Orias asked. "After its seal number is compared with the root archive and suspension record," the senior vent examiner said. "I may then issue an opening order under joint custody." "I do not decide her suspension," Hestia addressed the inquiry. Seraphine kept an unincorporated branch on her working tablet after the annual map excluded it. That did not permit private use. "It was not private," Seraphine said. "I submitted the assessment 11 months ago to my office and received no rejection. Silence is not joint approval. It is also not permission to certify the branch as non-existent." Orias looked between them. "Did you tell me an unresolved outlet remained beneath the ascension junction?" "I told the Crown the annual map contained no approved variants. That was not my question. No. I did not describe an unapproved branch as part of the ceremonial route. The distinction remained technically defensible. Orias suspended every ceremonial ignition until the physical emberway, both maps and the approval chain were compared. Seraphine's ritual suspension would not become professional dismissal while the judging route remained disputed." She looked at him. "You could have ordered that comparison before you took my clasp." "Yes." The assessment register showed Seraphine's sealed submission, arriving through Crown intake 11 months earlier and moving to the Rite-Marshal's office. Its first disposition read, "Awaiting full pressure recertification. That supports my position," Hestia said. The archivist turned the page. A later notation carried the same route number, the senior vent examiner's scheduling mark, and a winter closure docket reference. The test had been formally ordered. The docket lay inside a sealed winter volume under that route number. Its outer seal was intact. The trial dates matched the gate register. The crew marks matched the maintenance roster. And each page carried a pressure gauge impression taken at ceremonial load. The emergency gate had opened, carried the counter draft, and kept adjacent channels within safety tolerance through all 3 trials. The senior vent examiner had certified the branch. Below that certification stood the Crown route seal issued under Orias's authority. The docket did not show whether he applied it personally or whether the Royal Route Secretary used the standing warrant of his office. Hestia studied the seal without disputing it. "If that authorization reached my map office, there will be an intake mark. Until one is found, this proves approval, not delivery." Beside the seal, the Royal Route Secretary's initials and date marked the implementation order, approved for permanent inclusion before the next ascension rite. Forward to the Rite-Marshal's map office. The forwarding instruction remained intact. The Rite-Marshal office receipt that should have completed the transmission chain was still missing. The authenticated maintenance docket established that Seraphine Edevane's emergency outlet had passed 3 ceremonial load trials and received Crown authorization for permanent inclusion before the ascension rite. It did not establish whether Orias Draven personally reviewed the approval, whether the authorized docket reached Hestia Quill's map office, or who allowed the annual map to close without the branch. The independent senior vent examiner read the tablet seal number into the record and matched it to the suspension entry and route archive. "The records agree," he said. "I authorize examination under joint custody." The Crown archivist opened the archive half of the evidence seal. The examiner opened the second. Under the written order, the archivist cut the cinder cord without removing Seraphine's ritual suspension. He sealed the cord in an evidence sleeve beside the tablet. The black glass leaves would be resealed after examination. Orias touched neither seal. Seraphine remained beside counsel as the submitting route engineer and a voluntary technical witness, not as a restored vent warden. Each tablet entry carried a route number, vent depth, pressure interval, and date. The emergency branch measurements matched the winter test docket within the examiner's allowed tolerance. Hestia studied the comparison. That proves her tablet records the tested branch. It does not prove my office received the permanent authorization. No, Seraphine said. It proves I did not keep an invented route outside the system. The examiner compared her counterdraft interval with measurements taken from the physical gate after the shutdown. The timing matched the outlet's actual opening delay. Without that interval, ceremonial pressure reached the ascension junction before the gate could clear. Could the certified map have carried today's load without the branch? Orias asked. Not safely, the examiner replied. It required either that outlet or a reduced pressure ignition sequence. The map contained neither. Hestia remained controlled. The annual packet closed from records formerly received by my office. A Crown dispatch entry is not a map office intake mark. The Royal Route Secretary's register showed the approved docket, leaving Crown custody 9 months earlier. The bundle listed technical certification, Crown authorization, and the revised gate sequence. The map office receiving column was blank. Was it returned? Seraphine asked. No return entry, the archivist said. Reported lost. No loss report. My clerks could incorporate only what entered our custody, Hestia said. An unreceipted dispatch does not prove delivery. Orias looked at the annual closure date. Did anyone reconcile Crown dispatches against your intake book? Map clerks verified, received dockets. They were not required to search another office for unreceipted bundles. The Crown could prove dispatch. The Rite-Marshal's office could deny receipt. Between the two columns, no officer owned the missing bundle. Seraphine looked at the preserved cinder cord. You removed my authority using the map created inside that gap. Orias did not defend the choice. The tablet's oldest leaf had been heat-warped and repaired along one edge. Its route number predated construction of the permanent counterdraft outlet by 3 years. The leaf contained 6 abbreviated emergency count notations tied to turns through the Eastern Royal Apartments and the narrow service vent. The commands shortened as smoke reduced the time between breaths. The final interval ended unfinished, where Seraphine's etched calculation broke off. Its intake mark showed that the leaf had entered the route archive from Seraphine's field tablet the morning after the chamber fire, witnessed by an infirmary clerk. The chamber sequence later became the engineering basis for the permanent counterdraft outlet beneath Emberchant. Orias recognized the collapsed western corridor and the turn toward the service vent. You calculated this while the chamber was burning. I calculated enough to keep you moving. He remembered the final command not because the glass preserved it, but because he had heard her voice tear while she forced him toward open air. Hestia's counsel stepped forward. An emergency calculation does not establish the cause of her present lung limits. No, Seraphine said. The medical record does. With Seraphine's consent entered through counsel, the examiner ordered release of only her treatment entry from the night of the fire. Unrelated patient records remained sealed. The entry documented smoke inhalation, tissue damage, and permanent loss of upper breath capacity. It named Seraphine and carried the Royal Fire's incident number. Using that cross-reference, the archivist opened the separate sealed rescue file under the same joint order. Its summary named Orias, 2 unconscious guards, and a senior vent warden who arrived after evacuation. Seraphine's name did not appear. The medical entry proved she was treated after the fire for smoke injury. The rescue file proved the Crown's official account omitted her role. Neither identified who caused the omission. Orias read the summary twice. You were treated inside the Royal Infirmary. How was your part removed from the rescue record? I asked that question 3 years ago. To whom? Royal Right Administration. Hestia answered before he turned. My office received an accommodation petition concerning damaged lungs. That is not the same as receiving a verified claim that she led the king out. The petition did both, Seraphine said. It requested accommodation and correction of the chamber, fire service record. Then the file should show the supporting attachment. The archive index recorded Seraphine's petition entering Royal Rite Administration 2 days after the fire. Its attachment list named 3 leaves. Only 2 remained. The missing leaf was titled Royal Chamber Evacuation Sequence, prepared by Seraphine Edevane. The current route bundle and the older petition had entered Rite Administration under the same rule. Custody could be assigned to a department without naming the clerk who received the contents. The intake page assigned the petition to the office of the Deputy Rite-Marshal. 3 years earlier, that office had been led by Hestia Quill. No personal receipt mark showed who opened the file, but the evacuation sequence had disappeared after the petition entered her administrative chain. The intake record established that Seraphine Edevane's 3-leaf petition had entered the Deputy Rite-Marshal's administrative custody before one attachment disappeared. It did not establish that Hestia Quill personally received, read, or removed the missing evacuation sequence. The independent senior vent examiner ordered the 3-year-old intake daybook, transfer ledger, and clerk roster brought under joint seal. Hestia remained at the lower table with counsel. "My former title covered 19 clerks," she said. "Department custody is not personal receipt. No one has ruled otherwise," Seraphine replied. The daybook showed that an intake clerk counted 3 leaves when Seraphine submitted the petition. The clerk's mark matched the roster and 2 entries from the same day. The packet then moved to the Deputy Rite-Marshal's review shelf. Its transfer line carried an office stamp and the number 3. "When did the count change?" Orias asked. The return entry to Central Archive listed 2 leaves. No discrepancy report accompanied it. The packet remained in Rite Administration for 11 days, Hestia's counsel said. Medical accommodation, route review, and incident clerks could access the shared shelf. Could they remove an attachment lawfully? The examiner asked. Only by recording its destination. No destination appeared. The current route bundle and old petition had passed through the same intake chamber under one rule. A department could accept custody without naming the clerk handling each enclosed record. "That is a custody weakness," Hestia said. "It is not proof that either item reached me personally." Seraphine looked at the transfer count. "It proves my evacuation sequence did not vanish before your office accepted 3 leaves." The examiner agreed. The evidence established complete office custody, not personal custody by Hestia. Orias ordered the annual map packet compared with the transfer books. Hestia had signed the map closure 6 weeks after the Crown-authorized branch should have been forwarded. Her certification stated that every route docket received by the map office had been incorporated or formally challenged. No objection to Seraphine's branch appeared. "If the bundle never entered my office, there was nothing to challenge," Hestia said. "And if it did?" Orias asked. "Then someone failed to docket it." She offered no name. Hestia submitted a formal motion concerning Seraphine's tablet. The field leaf predates permanent construction. She retained an emergency sequence, used it as the basis for a disputed branch, and carried that branch after it was absent from the annual map. Her suspension should include technical misconduct. Seraphine's counsel objected. The branch passed independent trials and received Crown authorization. Retaining approved measurements on her assigned tablet was required route practice. Delivery of the authorization remains unproven, Hestia replied. A vent warden cannot treat a maintenance docket as permission to contradict the active map. "I did not open the gate," Seraphine said. "I warned that the active map was incomplete. You also asked for authority to halt the rite based on your tablet. I asked for the lawful route witness office. A witness halts pressure first and submits the record for review. She does not wait for the gallery to burn while 2 offices argue over a receipt. The motion forced Orias to decide whether Seraphine would remain suspended for command capacity or stand publicly accused of route manipulation. He looked at the tablet, resealed beneath joint custody. "The motion is denied without prejudice," No technical misconduct charge will be entered without evidence that Seraphine altered the active map, opened the omitted gate, or exceeded her assigned tablet authority. Her existing ritual suspension remains under review. Hestia inclined her head. Seraphine did not. You have refused to punish me for a violation she cannot prove. You have not restored the authority you removed without testing the map. No. The answer carried no request for patience. The examiner turned to the separate royal rescue file. Its control sheet listed an initial chamber report and the final crown account. The initial report remained in the sealed packet as a pressure copy leaf, an impressed duplicate made with the original. Its writing had faded, but its folio number and copy room mark remained intact. The Crown Archivist authenticated its drafting date, folio sequence, copy room mark, and incident packet seal before opening it beneath both custodians while both councils observed. The first version named Orias, the two guards, and Seraphine Edevane. It recorded that she entered the Eastern Service Corridor after the Western route collapsed, issued 6 emergency counts, and remained until the king reached the open vent. Orias read the line without moving. The report did not describe her damaged lungs. It established that the Crown's first account had named her in the rescue. Who revised the summary? He asked. The control sheet carried a route administration amendment code rather than a personal signature. That code permitted factual corrections from any office holding incident authority, Hestia's counsel said. Which offices? The examiner asked. Royal Guard, the Infirmary, Crown Records, and Rite Administration. The amendment log recorded one requested change. Replace the emergency route account with the arrival statement of the senior vent warden who reached the chamber after evacuation. Seraphine's name disappeared from the next version. That still does not identify the requesting officer, Hestia said. No, Seraphine replied. But it proves the Crown once knew what happened before someone taught the record to forget. The examiner checked the amendment packet against the intake daybook. A supporting certification stated that Seraphine's role could not be verified because her evacuation sequence had not been received. It was dated 7 days after her complete 3-leaf petition entered the Deputy Rite-Marshal's administrative custody. The record did not identify who prepared the certification, requested the amendment, or entered the final change. At the bottom was not an office stamp. It was a personal review initial. The Crown Archivist compared it with 3 authenticated reviews Hestia had marked during the same quarter. The office cipher, stroke order, and date notch matched. The certification had been personally reviewed by Hestia Quill. Hestia Quill's authenticated review initial established that she had personally examined the certification, claiming Seraphine Edevane's evacuation sequence had not been received. 7 days after the complete 3-leaf petition entered her office's custody. It did not establish that Hestia removed the missing leaf, knew the intake count, or understood that the certification was false. The independent senior vent examiner ordered the review packet reconstructed from its control numbers. The packet Hestia had seen contained Seraphine's accommodation request, the infirmary finding, and the non-receipt certification. It did not contain the intake page showing 3 leaves. Hestia's counsel touched the contents list. She reviewed the file presented to her. The 3rd attachment was already absent. Seraphine looked at Hestia. Did you ask why an evacuation claim arrived without the evacuation sequence? I asked whether Rite Administration had received it, and accepted a clerk's answer without checking the transfer count. The procedure did not require a deputy to inspect central intake for every missing attachment. No, Seraphine said. It allowed your approval to become the reason my name disappeared. The certification bore the drafting code of an incident record clerk. He had prepared it from a transfer shelf query returned by Rite Administration. The query read, "No evacuation sequence present in review file." That was accurate, Hestia said. It avoided whether the office had received it, the examiner replied. The amendment request came from the senior vent warden's office. It sought to replace an unverified field account with the statement of the ranking officer who reached the chamber after evacuation. Orias looked at the final rescue summary. Who held that office? Warden Caldris, the archivist said. He was acting senior during the fire. Seraphine's breath caught once, then steadied. Caldris had performed the Crown pressure call after her suspension. Hestia remained controlled. Ranked incident reports routinely replace unverified field accounts. His office had authority to submit a correction. Did you know he had not been inside the chamber? Orias asked. I knew he arrived after evacuation. The summary says so. Yet his arrival statement replaced the account of the person who led me out. I reviewed a certification stating her sequence had not been received. The examiner confirmed Hestia had authority to certify the supporting record as sufficient. Crown Records entered the final change. Her initial had not erased Seraphine's name by itself. It had allowed the amendment to proceed. The examiner compared the old transfer query with the current root bundle chain. Both used the same office-level intake rule. Both checked only the receiving office's review shelf, not the dispatch and intake records together. The old petition entered with 3 leaves, then reached review with 2. The current root bundle left Crown dispatch, but no map office receipt closed the chain. In both cases, the examiner said, the system treated an absent document as never received without reconciling the offices on either side. That is a procedural defect, Hestia said. It does not prove I designed it. No, Seraphine replied. It proves you relied on it when the missing document made your preferred record easier. Hestia's counsel objected to motive. The examiner sustained it. Orias, fashed Hestia. You knew Seraphine had been treated for smoke injury. You knew she claimed an evacuation role. You approved a certification that removed that claim without checking whether your office accepted 3 leaves. I followed the standard in force, and I allowed that standard to carry royal authority. He suspended every incident amendment and root certification, resting on office-level non-receipt until a joint reconciliation rule could be enacted. The Crown Archivist warned that active ceremonial files would stop moving. Then they stop, Orias said. The ascension calendar will fail. It already failed. The order delayed 3 royal rites and forced the Crown to notify every province that Emberchant's certification system was under review. Seraphine watched the notices being sealed. You are willing to interrupt the kingdom now? Yes. You were not willing to delay 1 rite before taking my authority. No? He did not ask her to soften the difference. Orias ordered the original rescue summary restored to the public incident file as the first authenticated account, with the later amendment preserved beside it. Hestia Rose, you are revising royal history before deciding whether my review was negligent. I am restoring the earlier authenticated record. Your review remains part of the file, and Seraphine's suspension, unchanged until the root witness petition is separately judged. Seraphine's face closed. You will name what I did and still keep me outside the engine floor. I will not pretend one correction answers another. The archivist opened Caldris's supporting statement. He claimed he had remained at the western pressure post until ordered to withdraw. The gate roster contradicted him. His command clasp had been logged at the outer court 12 minutes before the western corridor collapsed. Caldris had left before Seraphine entered the fire. Caldris's clasp record established that he had left the western pressure post before the royal chamber route collapsed. It did not establish why he left, whether he had received an order, or whether Hestia Quill knew his later statement was false. The independent senior vent examiner ordered the emergency command slate, withdrawal register, and outer court gatebook produced under joint seal. Caldris stood at the lower table without his command clasp. I was sent to clear the public corridor, he said. The fire was moving toward the western intake. By whose order? Orias asked. The acting route commander. You were the acting route commander, Seraphine said. Caldris looked at her. Then I made the decision required to protect the court. The command slate contained no evacuation order for his post. Its last entry instructed the senior warden to hold the western gate until a replacement arrived. No replacement had been assigned. The outer court book recorded Coldris crossing the suspension arch 12 minutes before the corridor collapse. His clasp was removed from active command at his own request. Hestia's counsel intervened. A self-directed withdrawal may still be lawful if the post becomes untenable. Was it untenable? The examiner asked. The pressure marks from that hour showed rising heat but no backdraft at the western post. The emergency threshold had not yet been reached. Coldris kept his voice even. I believed the chamber could not be recovered. You believe the king was still inside, Orias said. Yes, and left. I moved to protect the larger court. Seraphine's scar tightened when she drew breath. You closed your command before anyone replaced you. I entered because the route still carried a living pressure signal. Coldris turned toward her. You entered without authorization. I entered because you had abandoned the only post that could tell us where he was breathing. The examiner ruled that Coldris had left an active emergency station without recorded relief. Whether that amounted to desertion required a separate command hearing. Hestia remained composed. That does not prove his later account was knowingly false. He may have believed his withdrawal was lawful. The archivist opened Coldris's promotion file from the year after the fire. Hestia had sponsored him for permanent senior vent warden rank. Eligibility required an unbroken emergency service record. Attached to the file was a certified extract from the same gatebook showing Coldris's early departure. Orias looked at Hestia. You reviewed this? My initial confirms review of the promotion packet. So you knew he left before the collapse? I knew he left the post. The incident summary described an emergency withdrawal. The incident summary your review allowed to replace Seraphine's account. The records available to me treated her sequence as unverified. Seraphine stepped closer to the table. You had the gate extract. You knew he was outside. You knew I was in the infirmary with smoke damage. Yet the record made him the ranking witness and made me absent. Hestia did not look away. I knew the kingdom needed a command officer who could continue serving. Your lungs were already compromised, and your field sequence was missing from the review file. That is not an answer. It is the decision the office made. The admission changed the room without becoming a confession to removing the leaf. The examiner compared the dates. Hestia reviewed the false non-receipt certification first. 2 days later, she approved the amendment packet. 6 months later, she used the resulting rescue account to support Coldris's promotion. The sequence established institutional benefit and personal reliance. It still did not prove she had taken Seraphine's attachment. Orias removed Coldris from active command pending hearing. Hestia objected. The Ascension staff will lose its only certified high caller. Then the right remains suspended. You are dismantling Emberchant over a 3-year-old record dispute. No, Orias said. I am refusing to let a disputed record keep granting authority. Seraphine watched him place Coldris's clasp beneath seal. You can remove his authority now, she said. You could remove mine before examining the map. Yes. The word no longer sounded like restraint. It sounded like a debt he had begun to understand but had not paid. The examiner returned to the chamber route leaf. Its final unfinished interval ended at the service vent where Orias had emerged. A separate infirmary timing slip recorded Seraphine's admission 7 minutes later. Orias looked at the 2 times. You stayed inside after I reached the vent. There were 2 guards behind the smoke door. You went back. I kept the pressure count until they reached the turn. Her damaged lungs had not come from one command shouted for a king. She had continued after he was safe. Hestia's promotion file contained one final attachment. A recommendation explaining why Coldris, not Seraphine, should control the revised emergency drills. The recommendation bore Hestia's signature. Its stated reason was that Seraphine had failed to maintain command breath during the royal chamber evacuation. Below that sentence, the infirmary timing slip proved she had remained in the fire long enough to guide 3 people out. Hestia Quill's signed recommendation established that she had used Seraphine Edevane's damaged breath to deny her control of the emergency drills. After records showed she remained in the fire long enough to guide 3 people, Out. It did not prove Hestia caused the missing attachment, altered the annual map, or intended to erase Seraphine from service. The independent senior vent examiner placed the recommendation infirmary timing slip and Cauldress promotion file under joint seal. Orias faced Hestia across the lower table. Did you verify how long Seraphine remained inside before you described her command breath as a failure? I reviewed the incident account, then accepted by the Crown. You had the infirmary slip. I had evidence that she could no longer sustain upper command. That was the injury, Seraphine said. You used it as proof that the rescue had not happened correctly. Hestia's voice remained controlled. Emberchant required someone physically capable of carrying the high call. Then you could have reassigned the call and preserved my root authority. The root witness transfer was politically untested. It was lawful. Orias looked at the signed recommendation. So you chose the officer who left his post, because his voice looked stronger in public. I chose continuity. You chose a version of the fire that protected continuity. The examiner ruled that Hestia's decisions required a formal administrative hearing. Until then, she could not certify maps, assign emergency roles, or approve Vent Warden fitness findings. Hestia challenged the consequence. Removing me suspends every right that depends on annual certification. Then they remain suspended, Orias said. Provincial flame courts will call that instability. They may call it what it is. Seraphine watched him take responsibility only after the record made avoidance impossible. The inquiry recessed at dusk. In the outer archive chamber, she gathered the copies she was entitled to keep. Her medical entry, the first rescue report, the chamber sequence, and the test docket for the permanent outlet. Orias found her closing the case. You are leaving the palace. I am leaving Royal Emberway service. Your suspension has not become dismissal. No. I am ending the part where the Crown decides whether I may be useful again. He stopped beside the table, but did not block her path. I can restore your senior Vent Warden rank. When the hearing closes, my lungs will not restore with it. The Ember Root Witness Office remains available. It remained available before you tied the cord. His gaze fell to the brass clasp she had removed. I know. No. You know now what the inquiry can prove. She secured the case. For 3 years you remembered being led through smoke. You never asked who kept counting after you reached air. I should have. You should have asked before my body became evidence. He reached toward the case, then let his hand fall. What will you do? Submit my technical archive to the examiner. Train no one privately. Correct no route from outside the record. If the annual system cannot be rebuilt without you, then it was never a system. It was dependence the Crown refused to name. She signed a formal relinquishment of active command authority. She did not surrender authorship of her roots, her right to testify, or her pending root witness petition. The examiner accepted it. You understand that voluntary relinquishment does not resolve the legality of your suspension. I do. Keep investigating it. Hestia's counsel entered as the seal dried. This resignation creates the operational gap my client warned against. Seraphine looked at him. The gap existed when your office used my work without protecting the person who created it. Orias ordered that no one describe her departure as incapacity, misconduct, or resolution of the map dispute. It was a narrow protection, correctly given, and far too late. Seraphine left Emberchant through the east service gate. No royal escort accompanied her. Orias watched from the upper landing without calling her back. By morning, the consequences reached the engine floor. 4 junior Vent Wardens refused provisional ignition duty until the Crown clarified whether reporting lung damage could cost them root authority. 2 older Wardens filed for independent medical review. Maintenance crews declined to certify any map, lacking a named root witness. Hestia argued that Seraphine had encouraged collective refusal. The examiners found no message or instruction from her. They watched what happened to her. One junior warden said. No one had to organize the lesson. Orias suspended the next 3 provincial rites, and ordered full pay for every worker who declined unsafe duty. Treasury ministers warned that the delay would cost trade guarantees and ceremonial tribute. "Pay it," he said. That evening, the Crown Archivist delivered a sealed petition from the engine staff. It did not ask for Seraphine's reinstatement. It demanded that no injured vent warden be removed from route authority until an independent board reviewed physical capacity, technical competence, and lawful accommodation separately. Beneath 17 worker marks, one additional condition had been written: no Ember Root witness will serve while the Crown alone controls the record used to silence them. The engine staff's petition forced Orias Draven to answer a question larger than Seraphine Edevane's suspension. Who controlled the records used to decide whether an injured vent warden remained fit to protect Emberchant? He convened the inquiry in the vent court without ceremonial fire. Hestia Quill attended under counsel, stripped of map authority but not yet judged. "The workers are asking the Crown to surrender control of its own safety offices," she said. "They are asking the Crown to stop serving as witness, custodian, and final judge in the same dispute," Orias replied. The independent senior vent examiner presented an Emberway review board. One outside examiner, one archive officer chosen by the Record Guild, one working vent warden elected by engine staff, one medical assessor, and one Crown representative without veto power. The council ministers objected. Without royal control, provincial courts may reject Emberchant certification. Then they may explain why one seal matters more than a verifiable route. Orias signed the temporary charter. The act removed his authority to decide Seraphine's fitness, restore her command, or close the map inquiry alone. It placed every disputed file, including his suspension order, under independent review. Seraphine received the charter at the workshop she had rented beyond the Eastern Kiln Road. She read it once. "Does the king request my return?" "No, Warden Edevane. I am not a warden." The messenger corrected the record before leaving. Orias came 2 days later without guard or royal mantle. He stayed outside until Seraphine opened the door. "You should have sent another notice," she said. "I did not come to summon you." "Then why are you here?" "To tell you what I entered into the public record before someone calls it generosity." He placed a certified declaration on her work table. It acknowledged that Seraphine designed the chamber evacuation sequence, remained inside after his escape, guided 2 guards out, and later developed the permanent counterdraft outlet from that work. It also stated that Orias suspended her without ordering the comparison required by the emergency law she had helped write. "You named your failure." "Yes. That does not return 3 years." "No." He had restored her authorship without attaching an appointment, pardon, or request for service. "The rescue account will remain corrected whether you return or not," he said. "Your route archive will carry your name. Caldrus's promotion is suspended. Hestia's case will be judged from the sealed evidence. You are careful not to ask forgiveness." "I have not repaired enough to deserve an answer." The restraint left her free. At Emberchant, Orias converted the West Consultation Chamber into an open route archive. Every emergency calculation used by the Crown would require a named author, intake count, transfer receipt, and amendment history. The Royal Route Secretary warned that private counsel would become discoverable. "It should," Orias said. "I ruled through work the public was told came from me." The first archive entry credited Seraphine's smoke drill system and junior training procedures. Hestia's counsel challenged the declaration. "My client did not create the Crown's private reliance on Seraphine. No, that part is mine." The review board then examined Seraphine's ritual suspension. Her inability to perform the Crown pressure call was undisputed. So were her route competence, emergency judgment, and qualification for Ember Route witness. The board found that active ignition command could be restricted, but total removal from the engine floor had been disproportionate because Orias ignored available accommodation and relied on a defective map. The suspension was ruled procedurally unsound. The original order remained under seal with the finding attached. Orias accepted the ruling publicly. "Will you restore her clasp?" a minister asked. "It is not mine to place in her hand." The board issued Seraphine an independent offer to serve as Emberroot witness. No answer was required before the final map hearing. She returned it unsigned. Instead, she sent conditions. Injured wardens must receive separate assessments of voice, lungs, root judgment, and emergency authority. No accommodation petition could pass through Rite administration without named custodians. Every working warden must be able to halt ignition without risking dismissal when physical pressure contradicted a certified map. Her final condition was shorter. The first public route review must name every worker whose calculations, maintenance marks, or emergency reports were used without credit. Orias read the list before the council. "Will you accept all of it?" The senior vent examiner asked. "Yes, even if she never takes the office?" "Yes." That evening, the Crown Archivist opened the authorship index for the permanent outlet. Seraphine's name appeared on the engineering basis. Below it, 3 maintenance workers and 2 junior vent wardens had been reduced to office marks. One additional contribution had no name at all. It was the final counter-draft correction that kept the outlet from overloading the Eastern Channel. The handwriting belonged to Seraphine. The date was 6 months after the Crown had already removed her from emergency drill authority. The undated office entry became more damaging once archive staff found its routing packet. Seraphine's counterdraft correction had not appeared spontaneously in the authorship index. 6 months after Hestia removed her from emergency drill authority, Seraphine had submitted the calculation through the ordinary route desk. The intake clerk counted 2 leaves: the pressure correction and a signed explanation of the Eastern Channel risk. Only the calculation reached the certified map file. The independent review board summoned Seraphine to Emberchant as the submitting engineer. She entered through the public gate, carrying no command clasp. Engine workers, provincial observers, and vent court clerks watched from the open galleries. Orias waited beside the lower table. "You accepted the summons," he said. "I accepted a public review. I did not return to royal service. I understand. Then do not place a title beside my name that I have not chosen." He ordered the clerk to record her as an independent route maker. Hestia attended with counsel. Her authority remained suspended, but her right to examine every record was preserved. The panel reminded the galleries that this hearing concerned administrative use of technical work, not yet the missing rescue attachment or the unreceipted route bundle. "The calculation was technically sound," Hestia said. "Using it protected the Eastern Channel." "Under whose authorship?" Seraphine asked. "Rite Administration incorporated it. That is an office, not a person." The archived amendment showed that Seraphine's correction lowered the outlet delay by 2 counts and prevented overload in the Eastern Glass. 3 later ceremonial maps used the adjustment. None named her. Hestia's counsel argued that a suspended officer could not hold active route authority. "Authorship and command are separate findings," the senior vent examiner replied. "Suspension may restrict authority. It does not transfer creation of a calculation to the office receiving it." The board restored Seraphine's name to the correction record. The original maps remained untouched, with sealed public annotations attached to each one. Seraphine did not thank the Crown. She turned to the 5 unnamed maintenance and junior warden entries beneath hers. "These are reviewed today." A minister objected. "The hearing concerns your work. It concerns a system that consumes named people and publishes office marks." The worker-elected board member supported her request. Each contribution was tested against maintenance books, route drafts, pressure impressions, and witness marks. 4 names were verified: 2 maintenance fitters, a junior map clerk, and the warden who calculated the shutter delay. The 5th remained unresolved and was marked disputed rather than guessed. Orias watched her protect standards even when generosity would have made the moment easier. During the recess, he approached without dismissing the record clerks. Will you now accept the root witness office? Not as an appointment from you. The board is independent. The Crown still owns the engine floor. What condition remains? Seraphine looked through the glass toward the 7 vent veins. An Ember root witness must be able to halt any rite without asking whether the king will punish the interruption afterward. That authority must survive the king's embarrassment. Orias absorbed the words. You are asking me to surrender emergency control. I am asking you to stop calling control safety. The final charter gave an active root witness independent halt authority whenever live pressure departed from the sealed map or the physical Emberway contradicted its record. A halt could be reviewed afterward, but it could not be treated as misconduct merely because the rite had been public. The Crown lost the power to remove that authority alone. Suspension required the review board and an outside examiner. Every halt, override, and later ruling would enter a public technical register. Orias signed. The ministers warned that future kings would inherit the limitation. That is the point, he said. Seraphine added another condition. Injured wardens would elect one board seat separate from active command staff. Medical restriction, technical competence, and ceremonial presentation could no longer be merged into one fitness judgment. The board accepted it. Only then did Seraphine sign a 1-year term as the first independent Ember root witness. She did not reclaim her old clasp. A new one was struck without the crown dragon. Black iron crossed by a single open vent line. Orias presented it without touching her hand. You may still leave after the year, he said. I may leave tomorrow if the charter is violated. Yes. The answer held no attempt to possess her future. Before the session closed, the archivist produced the missing second leaf from Seraphine's old correction packet. It had been found inside a Rite Administration instruction book whose shelf transfer predated the present inquiry. The book was sealed in place, then opened before both custodians and council. The leaf carried Seraphine's signed explanation of the Eastern Channel danger. Across its lower margin was a routing direction bearing Hestia's authenticated personal initial. Incorporate the calculation under Office Authority. Do not restore suspended authorship to the ceremonial record. The routing direction established that Hestia Quill had personally ordered Seraphine Edevane's verified correction, absorbed under Office Authority, while keeping her name out of the ceremonial record. It did not prove that Hestia removed every missing attachment, intercepted the Crown-authorized route bundle, or acted alone across 3 years of administrative failures. The Independent Review Board reconvened before the full vent court. Hestia stood without the Rite-Marshal's clasp. My instruction concerned a suspended officer, she said. The calculation belonged to Emberchant once submitted. Use belonged to Emberchant, Seraphine replied. Authorship did not. The Crown Archivist opened the Rite Administration instruction book under joint custody. 3 related routing orders appeared within the same quarter. One directed clerks to incorporate Seraphine's Eastern Channel correction without her name. A second order disputed route attachments, held outside ceremonial packets until office review. The third instructed map staff to close annual certification, using only documents carrying completed internal receipts. That final rule explained how the Crown-authorized emergency branch could be ignored after its delivery receipt disappeared. It did not prove Hestia personally removed the receipt, but it showed that her office procedure treated an unreceipted authorization as though it had never existed. The senior vent examiner compared the instruction dates. You created a system in which missing custody marks always favored office control. I created consistency, Hestia said. The Crown needed maps that could close on time. You closed them by excluding unresolved evidence, Orias said. And you signed the rights built from those maps? Yes. He did not let her responsibility become shelter for his own. The board delivered separate findings. Hestia had knowingly erased Seraphine's authorship from a verified route correction, approved use of an incomplete non-receipt certification, and maintained a closure rule that allowed unresolved route records to disappear from ceremonial review. The evidence did not establish that she personally removed the evacuation leaf or intercepted the permanent route bundle. She was removed permanently from Rite administration and barred from route, fitness, and incident record authority. The question of document removal remained open for civil investigation. Coldris lost active command and faced a separate emergency post-hearing. Then Orias rose before the 7 dragon-glass veins. 3 years ago, Seraphine Edevane entered a burning chamber after my acting commander left his post. She guided me out, returned for 2 guards, and damaged her lungs while preserving the route that later became Emberchant's permanent counterdraft outlet. The public record clerks wrote every word. I remembered her voice, leading me through smoke. I did not investigate why the Crown's rescue account omitted her. I used her calculations, accepted her drills, and allowed her injury to be judged as professional failure. On the day of her suspension, I knew lawful accommodation existed. I chose the appearance of certainty instead. "No dragonfire," answered him. The statement carried authority because he signed it beneath personal liability and surrendered the right to seal it closed. He revoked every delegated fitness rule that merged physical limitation with technical judgment. He transferred final custody of route records, medical accommodations, and emergency suspensions to the independent board created under Seraphine's conditions. The Crown retained ceremonial command. It no longer controlled the evidence used to punish those who interrupted it. The corrected ascension route was then displayed across Emberchant. The physical outlet, winter trials, Crown authorization, and Seraphine's counterdraft timing appeared together under named authorship. The 5 previously hidden workers stood beside their verified contributions. Seraphine took her place at the independent halt station wearing the black iron route witness clasp. Warden Coldris's replacement performed the Crown pressure call cleanly. First intake, open. The lower channels brightened. Second gate, hold. Pressure reached the ascension junction. This time the emergency outlet opened at Seraphine's recorded interval. The dragon glass remained clear. Heat rose through the royal vent without reversing toward the galleries. The rite succeeded because the map finally matched the Emberway. After the court emptied, Orias found Seraphine at the halt station completing the public register. "You could have stood beside me during the declaration," he said. "You were naming what you did. You did not need me to make it gentler." "No." She closed the ledger. "I still remember loving the man I led through that chamber. His breath caught, but he did not reach for her, and I remember what the king did afterward." She continued, "Both memories are true. What may I ask of you?" "Nothing that assumes repair purchases an answer." He bowed his head once. "Then I will keep repairing what remains." She studied him across the black glass. "Meet me here after each monthly review. No private summaries, no hidden counsel. You will listen while the workers speak for themselves. As king, as the man who must learn the difference. It was not forgiveness. It was not a promise of love. It was a future she controlled." At dawn, Seraphine entered the public route archive and placed her field tablet beneath her own name. The damaged command marks remained visible. So did the unfinished calculation from the fire. No clerk corrected them into perfection. They were evidence of what her breath had cost and what her judgment had saved. Above the archive door, the new Emberway law carried a single requirement. No route may use a person's work while erasing the person who made it. Seraphine walked onto the engine floor by her own authority. Orias followed only after she opened the gate.